The courtroom was silent, except for the rhythmic ticking of the wall clock and the occasional scratch of a pen across paper. Every eye was on the man in the wheelchair. Aiden Brooks, 35 years old, a decorated Marine Corps veteran, now on trial for criminal trespass and use of a dangerous animal to inflict bodily harm. He sat quietly, his hands folded, shoulders square, an expression unreadable. His service dog Valor, a lean and powerful German shepherd with a sleek black and tan coat, sat dutifully by his side, still as a statue. Except for his eyes. They were locked on the witness stand, unblinking, sharp, watching. Across the room, the prosecutor's voice echoed as she paced dramatically before the jury. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is not about medals or military service. This is about a man who, suffering from trauma, no doubt, made a choice. He invaded a private home. He attacked an innocent father, and he unleashed a trained dog, this one, on a civilian." She pointed directly at Valor. "A dog, bred and trained for combat, not community." There were murmurs from the gallery, some skeptical, some sympathetic. Aiden didn't react. He couldn't, not like he used to. Years ago, a blast in Hellman had taken his ability to walk and nearly taken his ability to speak. Now every word was effort. Most of the time he let silence speak for him. His court-appointed attorney shifted uncomfortably, clearly outmatched by the aggressive prosecution. The witness on the stand, David Renner, the alleged victim, spoke with calculated confidence. "He just burst into the yard, no warning. That dog charged me for no reason," Renner said, voice rising. "I didn't do anything. I was just standing by my own back door." Valor's ears twitched, his gaze sharpened. He let out the faintest growl, so low, so controlled, only those nearby would have heard. But Aiden noticed. His fingers moved slightly, forming a subtle, practiced signal with his right hand. Thumb in, palm tight, 2 fingers down. Their code. Valor stood. Gasps scattered across the room. The judge looked up. "Control your animal, Mr. Brooks." But Aiden remained still. Valor walked forward, not lunging, not growling, just moving with purpose toward the witness stand. His paws tapped softly against the tile floor. The bailiff flinched, unsure whether to intervene. Renner shifted uncomfortably in his seat, face paling. Valor stopped 2 feet from him. Then he barked, loud, sharp, once. Renner flinched violently. Valor stepped forward and sniffed at the man's pant leg. Then suddenly, with a swift motion, he nosed open the flap of Renner's coat and pulled out a child's plastic toy, a keychain shaped like a cartoon dinosaur, smeared with something dark. The courtroom fell into stunned silence. The judge stood slowly, eyes narrowing at the object now laying on the floor. "What is that?" Renner stammered. I don't know how that got there. That's not—" Valor sat beside the object and looked back at Aiden. Aiden nodded once. The judge looked at the bailiff. "Get that tested, now." Then she turned to the room, voice firm. "Court will recess immediately. That dog just revealed something that changes everything." The sound of distant gunfire still echoed in Aiden's mind. Even now, years later, the red sands of Helmand Province clung to the corners of his memory like dust that refused to wash off. He had been a platoon sergeant, sharp, focused, and steady under pressure. His unit relied on him, and he in turn had relied on a certain 4-legged teammate. Valor, a military working dog trained in reconnaissance and explosive detection. Valor had been young then, fast and relentless, able to sniff out IEDs buried beneath layers of rock and silence. They trusted each other without words. In war, that kind of bond wasn't just useful, it was survival. But the mission that changed everything happened during a routine sweep outside Lashkar Gah. Hayden's team had just cleared a compound when a secondary device detonated near the rear perimeter. The blast shredded the ground. Aiden was thrown several feet, his back slammed against a concrete wall. He remembered the burning, the screaming, and seeing Valor, bleeding, one eye closed, whimpering, but still crawling toward him. They were medevaced together. Back in the States, Aiden spent months in recovery. The explosion had damaged his spine beyond repair, paralysis from the waist down. Worse, his vocal cords had sustained trauma from shrapnel. Speech became fragmented, weak. Doctors told him to prepare for a new kind of life. For most, that would have meant retreat, but not for Aiden. He asked about Valor every single day. When he finally learned the military was preparing to retire the dog because of his injuries and impaired vision, Aiden pushed hard to adopt him. Paperwork, appeals, medical clearances, it didn't matter. He fought with the same quiet intensity he had shown in combat. Eventually they approved the transfer. They were both broken, but they were broken together. Aiden brought Valor home to a small apartment outside Pittsburgh. No welcome signs, no family waiting, just two survivors, scarred and stitched, trying to remember what peace was supposed to feel like. Together, they began the slow journey back. Physical therapy wasn't just for Aiden. It became their shared routine. As Aiden learned to transfer himself from bed to chair without assistance, Valor learned to stabilize him. As speech therapy helped Aiden recover fragments of voice, he and Valor developed a system of hand signals, efficient military-style commands modified into gestures only they understood. And Valor, clever and fiercely loyal, excelled. He learned not just signals but emotions. A flicker in Aiden's eyes could make him move. A breath held too long would send him to the phone. It was more than training, it was instinct born from shared trauma. Aiden never tried to be a hero. He didn't want attention. He didn't ask for thanks. He simply lived, quietly, purposefully, helping where he could, fixing neighbors' fences, repairing kids' bikes, offering old combat boots to a homeless shelter, and always Valor by his side. Not a service dog, not a pet, a comrade. The only one who had walked through fire and chosen to stay. It began with a sound Aiden hadn't heard in a long time. A child crying in the dark. It was past midnight. The neighborhood had settled into its usual hush, the kind that wrapped around the small street like a worn blanket. Aiden was half asleep in his chair, Valor curled up at his feet, when the dog suddenly stiffened, ears sharp, eyes focused on the window. Then came the low growl, deep, warning. Aiden rolled over and cracked the window. At first he heard nothing. Then it came again, a muffled sob, small, strangled, desperate, from the house next door. That house had recently been rented by a young couple with a small boy. They had moved in barely 2 weeks earlier. Aiden hadn't interacted with them much. A wave here, a glance there, but something about the man had always felt off. Instinct took over. Aiden activated the outdoor security camera he'd installed facing the side alley between the two houses. What he saw made his blood run cold. The lens caught the shadow of a man dragging a child by the arm into a dimly lit room. The boy struggled, kicking, his small hands flailing. Then came the unmistakable motion of a slap. Then another. Aiden froze. His heart pounded. He reached for his phone and dialed 911, hands shaking. "I'm reporting suspected child abuse next door," he said, voice hoarse. "What's your proof, sir?" the dispatcher asked. "I saw it on camera." "Do you have clear footage of physical harm?" Yes, but it's shadowed. You can hear it, the crying. Without visual evidence of abuse, we'll need to file a report and follow up. Unless the child is in immediate danger, we cannot intervene at this time." Aiden stared at the phone in disbelief. "He is in immediate danger. I understand your concern, sir, but protocol." He hung up. All night, he didn't sleep. The next morning, as the sun rose dull and gray over the street, there was a knock at his door. He opened it to find the little boy standing there, shivering, barefoot, with a swollen cheek and bruises blooming across his small arms. He couldn't have been more than 6 years old. He didn't speak. He just looked up at Aiden, then stepped forward, curling himself into the man's chest. Aiden didn't hesitate. He brought the boy inside, wrapped him in a blanket and gave him water. Then he called Child Protective Services directly. While waiting, he showed the boy Valor, who lay gently at his side, tail wagging. "This is Valor," Aiden whispered. "He protects people. You're safe now." Hours later, just as a caseworker arrived, the boy's father burst through the front door, red-faced and snarling. "You think you can steal my kid?" he shouted, fists clenched. Aiden tried to block the way, but his wheelchair couldn't move fast enough. Before the man could reach him, Valor sprang forward, a flash of fur and fury, barreling between Aiden and the man, barking with force that rattled the walls. When the man lunged, Valor bit his arm, not to maim, but to stop. The man screamed and stumbled back, just as the caseworker and CPS security rushed in. But the damage was done. The man filed charges, claimed Aiden had kidnapped his son, trespassed onto private property, and used a weaponized dog to cause bodily harm. He painted himself as the victim of a post-traumatic stress disorder adult veteran who snapped. The story spread fast, too fast. By the time the court date was set, Aiden was branded by local media as the unstable war hero who let his dog attack an innocent father. But Aiden didn't respond. He didn't chase interviews. He didn't defend himself online. He waited. And so did Valor. The courtroom felt colder than usual that morning. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead as the proceedings resumed. Aiden sat quietly in his wheelchair, hands resting in his lap. Beside him, Valor sat still as stone, posture alert, eyes scanning every movement around them. Across the room, Madeline Renner, the child's mother, took the witness stand. Her eyes were glassy, her voice rehearsed. She had clearly been coached. "My husband, he's not a violent man," she said, staring straight ahead. "There must have been a misunderstanding. He wouldn't hurt our son, not intentionally." Aiden didn't blink. He didn't speak, but his jaw tightened slightly. The prosecutor nodded, as if satisfied. "And to your knowledge, did Mr. Brooks ever enter your property without permission?" "No," she replied. "I never saw him do that." "Did he ever threaten you or your husband?" She hesitated. "No." A long pause settled over the courtroom. Then, slowly, Aiden raised his right hand. Fingers curled into a distinct motion, a sharp, subtle signal. Valor's ears twitched. He rose, calm but focused, and began walking toward the witness stand. The bailiff stepped forward instinctively, but the judge raised a hand. "Let him proceed." The room held its collective breath. Valor stopped in front of Madeline. She tensed visibly. Her hand slipped instinctively to the inside of her coat pocket. Valor's nose moved toward it. Slowly, deliberately, and then in one gentle motion he nudged his snout into the fabric and pulled out a small child's necklace. It was a simple trinket. Blue string, a plastic charm shaped like a star, but the star was cracked, and the cord was dotted with dried blood. Gasps erupted across the courtroom. Madeline's face turned pale. The judge leaned forward. "Ms. Renner, do you recognize this?" I don't know where that came from," she stammered. It's not mine." From the back of the room, a soft voice rang out. "That's mine." Everyone turned. Sitting in the gallery with a CPS worker, the small boy stood, trembling. "That's my necklace. He broke it." Tears spilled down his cheeks. "Valor saved me." The courtroom fell completely silent. Then the boy ran down the aisle straight to Valor and threw his arms around the dog's neck. Valor licked his cheek once and let out a quiet, reassuring whine. The judge looked from the necklace to the boy, to Madeline, who had begun to cry silently, her eyes full of shame. She whispered, "I didn't know how to stop him." The prosecutor scrambled, trying to recover. "Objection. This is emotional manipulation. The dog is being used to—" The judge cut him off, voice calm but firm. "Sit down, counselor." She turned her eyes back to Aiden, then to Valor. "I've seen trained dogs follow orders," she said slowly, "but I've never seen one deliver justice." She took a deep breath, then addressed the courtroom. "This proceeding is no longer about Mr. Brooks. It's about something much deeper. I'm ordering an immediate investigation into the home life of David and Madeline Renner. The charges against Mr. Brooks are hereby suspended pending dismissal." Aiden exhaled slowly. Valor returned to his side, lying down again as if nothing extraordinary had happened. But the truth had spoken, loud and clear. When the ruling was made official, Aiden didn't celebrate. There were no cheers, no raised fists, just a quiet nod of gratitude and the gentle touch of his hand on Valor's head. The charges were dropped. He was free. David Renner was arrested days later after the investigation confirmed the abuse. The little boy was placed in protective custody, finally safe. And the video of Valor uncovering the necklace in court? It exploded across the internet. 12 million views in a week, picked up by every major news outlet. The headlines read, "Silent Hero. Dog exposes abuse in shocking courtroom moment. Veteran and service dog save child expose truth." Reporters flooded Aiden's small home. Book offers, documentary deals, talk show invites. It all came at once, but he declined them all. "No thank you," he said to one journalist. This story wasn't for profit. It was for one boy who didn't have a voice. Instead, Aiden took the donations people had sent and used them to launch a small non-profit organization, Hands and Paws. Its mission was simple: to train service dogs for veterans dealing with speech limitations, post-traumatic stress disorder, and physical disabilities, especially those who, like Aiden once was, felt they had no place left in the world. Within a year, Hands and Paws was helping dozens of veterans across the state. Some came in broken, haunted, unsure of their future. They left with a partner, a purpose, and a new reason to move forward. And Valor? He became the heart of it all. One fall afternoon, Aiden rolled into a local elementary school auditorium for a speaking event. It was Veterans Week, and the school had invited him and Valor to talk to the students about service, courage, and resilience. The kids were wide-eyed, hanging on his every word. He didn't speak much, but when he did, it was measured and meaningful. The rest he let Valor show. At the end of the talk, a girl in the front row raised her hand. Her voice was soft. "Mr. Brooks, does Valor really know what justice means?" Aiden looked down at the dog, who was lying quietly at his feet, tail tapping gently on the floor. He smiled. "No," he said, "but he knows what love means. A pause. And that's all justice ever is." The room fell into a hushed silence before erupting into applause. Valor looked up at Aiden, then back at the children, as if he understood every word, and maybe he did. Some truths can't be spoken aloud. Some pain is too deep too raw for shouting, but sometimes a steady gaze, a quiet act, a loyal companion standing guard is all it takes to speak volumes. Aiden and Valor didn't need speeches. One was a soldier broken in body, the other a dog left behind by war. But together they forged something unbreakable, a story of trust, honor, and quiet justice. They didn't scream. They didn't plead. They simply showed up for each other, for a child, for the truth. Because sometimes the loudest voice in the room is silence. And sometimes a single bark at just the right moment is enough to shake the world awake. This is not just a story about a man and his dog. It's about what happens when love refuses to back down and when loyalty becomes a language all its own. Because in the end, truth doesn't always need to be heard. It just needs to be seen. Thank you for watching this powerful story of Aiden and Valor. A bond forged in silence, tested by adversity, and proven in the most unexpected of ways. Their journey reminds us that courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes it's a whisper between a man and his dog. Sometimes it's a quiet signal that reveals a truth the world tried to ignore. If this story touched your heart, inspired you, or made you believe in the power of loyalty and love again, we invite you to like, share, and most importantly, subscribe to Amazing Paws Stories. Here, we bring you real, emotional stories that celebrate the unbreakable bonds between people and their animals. Stories of rescue, resilience, and redemption. Subscribe now and join a growing community that believes every paw has a purpose, every bond tells a story, and sometimes the quietest companions make the loudest difference. This is Amazing Paws Stories, because some heroes don't speak, they simply stay.